Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're breaking down compound interest, the eighth wonder of the world, made simple enough that anyone can follow. Let's get into it. Around 300 years ago, a king made a promise he couldn't keep. A man had just shown him a brand new game, 64 squares, black and white. We call it chess, and the king loved it so much he said, "Name your reward, anything you want." The inventor smiled. He pointed at the board. "Just rice, Your Majesty. 1 grain on the first square, 2 on the second, 4 on the third. Keep doubling, all the way to square 64. The king laughed. "Rice? That's it?" He thought he'd gotten the deal of a lifetime. He hadn't, because by the time his servants reached the end of that board, the inventor was owed more rice than the entire planet has ever grown. 18 quintillion grains. That's an 18 with 18 zeros after it. Enough rice to bury every city on Earth. The king didn't lose a kingdom because he was foolish. He lost it because he didn't understand one single idea. The same idea a man named Albert Einstein supposedly called the eighth wonder of the world. The same idea that turned a quiet guy from Omaha into one of the richest men alive. The same idea that right now is quietly working either for you or against you. It's called compound interest, and in the next 10 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly how it works, using nothing but a chessboard, a penny, and a snowball. By the end, you'll understand a force that most adults never figure out their entire lives. Let's go. Okay, forget kings, forget billionaires. Let's shrink this all the way down. Imagine I give you a single penny, 1 cent, and I offer you a deal. I'll double that penny every single day for 30 days. Day 1, you've got 1 cent. Day 2, 2 cents. Day 3, 4 cents. Boring, right? After a whole week, you'd have 64 cents, less than $1. You'd probably think this is the worst deal in history. But watch what happens if you're patient. Because doubling is sneaky. It looks lazy at the start, and then it explodes. By day 15, halfway, you've crawled all the way up to about $160. Still nothing crazy. But the second half of the month is where the magic lives. Day 20, you're at $5,000. Day 25, you've crossed $160,000. And on day 30, that single penny has become more than $5 million. From 1 cent. Same deal every day. Nothing changed except time. And here's the wild part. Look at where the money actually showed up. On day 29, you had $2.5 million. 1 day later, just one more double, you had over $5 million. That final jump in a single day was bigger than everything you'd earned in the first 29 days put together. Let that sink in. The last step was worth more than the entire journey before it. That's the part your brain physically cannot picture. Our heads are wired to think in straight lines. 10, 20, 30, 40. Add the same amount each time. But compounding doesn't add, it multiplies. And when something keeps multiplying, the numbers don't climb a staircase. They go up a cliff. We look at the first few flat-looking steps and assume the whole thing is flat. It isn't. We just can't see the cliff from the bottom. That's the whole secret. That's compounding. So let me show you why it actually does that. Here's the key. There are 2 ways money can grow, and almost nobody is taught the difference. The first way is called simple interest. Picture a piggy bank. Every year a friend drops $10 in. Year 1, $10. Year 2, $20. Year 3, $30. It grows in a nice, straight, predictable line. 10, 20, 30, 40. Reliable, but slow. The money you already have just sits there. It doesn't do any work. The second way is compound interest, and this one's alive. Instead of just you adding money, the money you earn starts earning its own money. Your interest makes interest, and then that interest makes more. Think of it like a snowball at the top of a hill. At first, it's tiny. You give it a little push. It rolls, picks up a thin layer of snow, and gets slightly bigger. But here's the thing. Now it's bigger, so the next roll grabs even more snow. Bigger snowball, bigger surface, more snow, even bigger snowball. It feeds itself. By the bottom of the hill, that little ball you could hold in one hand is taller than a house. You didn't push it harder at the bottom, you just gave it a long enough hill. That's the difference. Simple interest is you, scooping snow by hand, one scoop at a time. Compound interest is the snowball doing the work for you, growing faster the bigger it gets. And the engine underneath both of these is just doubling. Same thing the chess inventor knew. Same thing that buried our poor king. So now you get why the chessboard is so brutal. It's not the doubling that gets you, it's the doubling that keeps going. Look at it again. The first half of that chessboard, all 32 squares, adds up to about 4 billion grains of rice. A lot, sure. But here's the part that breaks people's brains. The very next square, just square 33, one single square, has more rice on it than the entire first half combined. One square beats 32. That's the lesson hiding inside the whole thing. The early squares looked disappointing. The early days of that penny looked pathetic. The first few rolls of the snowball looked like nothing. And that's exactly why people quit. They give up on the boring first half, and they miss the explosive second half. The half where everything actually happens. Compounding doesn't reward how hard you push. It rewards how long you let it run. And this is exactly why so many smart people stay broke while patient people get rich. It's not about intelligence. It's about being able to sit still. Our brains are built for instant rewards. We want the snowball to be huge tomorrow. But compounding pays you at the end, not the beginning. So most people plant the seed, stare at the dirt for a week, decide nothing's happening, and dig it back up. They quit on square 3. They never reach the part of the board where one square is worth more than everything before it. The boring middle isn't the price of admission you suffer through. The boring middle is the investment. So how do you actually use this in real life? You're not getting a penny that doubles every day. I'm sorry, that deal doesn't exist. So let's bring this back to the real world. And this is where it gets genuinely useful. In the real world, your doubling comes from investing. When you put money into something like the stock market, and we'll keep this simple, you're buying tiny slivers of big companies. And over a long time, the most famous basket of American companies, called the S&P 500, has grown by an average of about 10% a year. That's roughly a century of history talking. Now 10% a year doesn't sound like a doubling penny, but there's a beautiful little shortcut called the Rule of 72. Here's how it works. Take the number 72, divide it by your yearly return, and you get the number of years it takes your money to double. So at 10%, 72 divided by 10 is about 7. Your money doubles roughly every 7 years, just by sitting there. Watch what that does. Say you invest $1,000 at age 25 and never add another cent. 7 years later, around 32, it's 2,000. By 39, 4,000. By 46, 8,000. 53, 16,000. 60, 32,000. By the time you're 67, that $1,000 has become around 64,000. You did nothing. You just owned the snowball and let it roll down a very long hill. And that long hill is the whole point. So let me prove it to you with two people. Same goal, same exact returns, wildly different endings. This single example changed how I think about money, and it might do the same for you. Meet Emma. Emma starts early. At age 25, she invests $200 a month. She does it for just 10 years, until she's 35, and then she completely stops. Never adds another dollar. Total she put in? $24,000. Then she just lets the snowball roll and walks away for 30 more years. Now meet Liam. Liam waits. He's busy, he's young, he figures he'll start later. At 35, the exact moment Emma quits, Liam begins. Same $200 a month, but Liam is disciplined. He keeps going every single month, all the way to 65. 30 straight years. Total he put in? $72,000. 3 times more money than Emma, out of his own pocket. So who wins? Same 10% return for both. Liam invested 3 times as much, for 3 times as long. He should crush her, right? He doesn't. At 65, Liam ends up with around $300,000. Not bad at all. But Emma, who stopped at 35, who put in a third of the money, Emma ends up with more. Somewhere north of 300,000 too, and depending on the exact timing, often ahead of him. She beat him while putting in $50,000 less. How? Those first 10 years. Emma's early money got to double, and double, and double again, 5, 6 times over. Liam's money never got enough hills to roll down. He didn't lose because he was lazy or poor. He lost because he started 10 years late. In compounding, the years you can never buy back are the early ones. They're the bottom of the chessboard, quiet, boring, and worth more than anything that comes after. Which brings us to the best living proof on the planet, Warren Buffett. You've probably heard the name. He's one of the richest people alive, worth well over $100 billion. Here's the part nobody tells you. Buffett didn't get rich because he had one genius year. He got rich because he started young and refused to get off the hill. Listen to this. More than 99% of Warren Buffett's wealth was built after his 50th birthday. Read that again. He didn't even become a billionaire until he was 56 years old. And then, over the next few decades, that fortune didn't just grow, it multiplied more than 100 times over. He'd been investing patiently since he was a kid selling gum and newspapers, but the avalanche only came in the second half of his life. His chessboard, his square 33. He even has a nickname for compound interest. He calls it the snowball. And his advice is just 3 little ideas. Find wet snow, meaning good investments that actually grow, and a really long hill, meaning lots of time. And then, the hardest part for most humans, leave it alone. In plain English, start as early as you possibly can, pick something solid, and then don't touch it. Because the most valuable ingredient in this entire equation isn't money. It's not being a genius. It's time. Time is the hill. The longer the hill, the bigger the snowball. A teenager with $20 and 40 years can beat a millionaire who starts at 60. That's not a motivational quote. That's just math. Now, I have to be honest with you, because this is where most videos lie. That 10% a year? It is not smooth. It's an average, not a promise. Some years the market jumps 20%. Other years it drops, and you watch your snowball shrink and feel sick about it. The people who win are the ones who don't panic and shove the snowball off the hill at the first scary moment. Compounding only works if you let it keep running. And one more honest note. There's a quiet thief in the room called inflation, the slow rise in the price of everything. After you account for it, that 10% feels more like 7 in real buying power. Still incredible. Still a snowball, just a slightly smaller one than the sticker price. But the core truth doesn't change. And it's the same truth the king missed 300 years ago. Small things, repeated, over a long enough time, become enormous. A grain of rice, a single penny, a handful of snow. None of them look like much on day one. That's the trap. That's why most people never start. They look at the boring first half of the board and walk away, right before the part where it all takes off. And maybe right now you're thinking, that's great, but I don't have $1,000, let alone $200 a month. Here's the beautiful part. You don't need it. The chess inventor started with 1 grain. The penny started with 1 cent. Compounding doesn't care how big your first push is. It cares how early you start and how long you wait. A small snowball on a long hill beats a huge snowball on a short one every single time. The amount is almost a distraction. Time is the real money. So here's the takeaway, and it's simple enough for a 14-year-old, which is kind of the point. You don't need to be rich to use compound interest. You don't need to be smart. You just need 2 things: to start and to wait. The earlier you put your snowball on the hill, the longer that hill gets. And time will do the heavy lifting that no amount of effort ever could. Quick reminder, this is a lesson on how compounding behaves, not financial advice. Markets go down as well as up, and what you do with your money is your call. Now, I kept this video on the easy half of the chessboard on purpose, because there's a whole second half, the advanced stuff that turns this from a cool idea into a real strategy. How dividends quietly reinvest and pour gasoline on the snowball. The special accounts that let it grow without the taxman taking a bite every year. Why putting money in a little bit at a time, every month, automatically, can beat trying to time the market. And the hidden fees that can secretly eat your compounding alive without you ever noticing. That's part 2, and I'll only make it if you ask for it. So if you want the advanced playbook, comment square 33 below and hit subscribe so you don't miss it. Because now you understand the 8th wonder of the world, and the king never did. Don't be the king. And that's a wrap. If this made things click for you, do me a favor. Hit subscribe and share it with someone who needs it. See you in the next one.